The 3 New Zealand seamers that they've taken into Headingley are, pretty handy. I mean, it's weird that they've waited until they're 2-0 down, but these are good bowlers. You could say that they are the 3rd, 4th and 5th most successful bowlers in the history of New Zealand cricket.
This is the last knot. My dad told me to say this.
In fact, let's do a fun thing here. If you look at all the wickets New Zealand have ever taken by bowlers, and then you combine Boult, Southee and Wagner into one beast, they've taken over 14% of the wickets. That's a fairly large amount, even for a country like New Zealand, who before have had other bowlers who have been so special that they've ended up with a huge percentage. Like Richard Hadlee has almost 7% of New Zealand's wickets, despite the fact that he retired in 1990. And you can actually have more fun with Hadlee if you'd like. When he did retire, he had over 17% of New Zealand's wickets, which means he took nearly 1 in 6 while he was playing. Anyway, he was quite handy. But Wagner, Boult and Southee over the last decade and change have been incredible as well. And there are obvious reasons for this. Wagner invented a new kind of bowling, a medium, fast, left-arm bouncer dude, complete with his own peculiar field settings. Boult is a fast left armer who can swing it with skills, and Southee is an outswing bowler who has developed in later times an incredible wobble ball. These are their main skills, and it's got them, a bunch of wickets. But all of them are so smart even outside of those obvious talents. And you could see what they were doing when they destroyed England's first 6 wickets at Headingley on the second day. And Boult started it. And the one thing I thought was very interesting is the way that he has changed his lengths in his opening spells so far in this series. He was shorter at Lords when he clearly wanted the ball to seam just that little bit more. At Trent Bridge, he was trying to find that in-between length so that, everyone wouldn't smash him since it was such an easy ground to score runs at. And when he got to Headingley, he pitched the ball up further. There's actually a meter's difference between where he pitched the ball at Headingley and where he pitched it at Lords. And because we are talking about the opening spells, I think that's what I find so interesting about it. He's working these things out so fast compared to other players. But there's one wicket I want to talk about specifically here, and that's Zach Crawley. A lot has been made about the technical deficiencies of Crawley in this shot, and there's no doubt he had his foot in the air. It was a bit odd. But I think a lot of what fried Crawley was what happened in the previous test at Trent Bridge. Crawley was dismissed not once, but twice by a 3/4 seam wobble ball, which is the ball that Kyle Mills perfected and now bowlers like Tim Southee and Mohammad Siraj have been using. Boult was pitching it around middle and off stump and then moving away from the right-hander further than the angle normally would, without bowling a fairly obvious and noticeable off-cutter. Almost no left-arm fast bowlers take the ball away from right-handers. It's not a skill that they possess, and Boult did it twice. And also with a wobble ball, which would have even more got into the head of Crawley. So then we come to Headingley, and how does he dismiss him in this innings? By moving the ball the other way with a swing. One thing that I've been told is very hard to do, many modern bowlers have told me this, is to move between swing and the wobble ball. Generally, once you start bowling the wobble ball, you don't swing it as much, which is odd because they are basically the same wrist. So with the 3/4 seam wobble balls that got Crawley last time, he's looking for the ball to go straight, is Crawley, or to leave him. And Boult does actually wobble the seam a little bit here, but not like he did at Trent Bridge. If anything, this is either a more conventional wobble ball, if such a thing exists, or it's possible that it was just supposed to swing and he got the seam not perfect. We know that Jimmy Anderson sometimes can still swing a ball without the seam being completely straight. Maybe Boult's worked that one out as well. But it doesn't really matter, because essentially, Boult knew that Crawley was worried about the ball going away from him, and Boult brought it back. That didn't end well for Crawley. What Tim Southee did was something a little bit less technical. His ability to turn himself from an outswing bowler to a wobble ball specialist has been incredible. But over recent years, I've been wondering if Southee is the best user of the crease also in the modern game. Part of the reason is that most bowlers don't use the crease now as much as they used to, because they've already started to go wider, because that works more for the wobble ball, and also just because DRS, just a bit. But Southee uses the crease a little bit more like a weapon. To Joe Root, he started with a wide ball, then he went close to the stumps quite a few times, and then he jumped out wider, and that's how he got his wicket. And Southee gets a lot of victims this way. It's more of a traditional outswinger method than anything else. If the ball is coming straight at you and moving away, it is still difficult, but once it is outside the off-stump line, you can leave it without worrying. If the bowler comes from wide, it makes you play at balls that you wouldn't usually leave. Plus, it is simply a variation. The ball to Joe Root was so good that it would have been incredible had he received it first up. But because of what happened the ball before, Southee made it better. And then you have Neil Wagner, who is such an outlier that I made a hugely long video essay just to describe how different he is from every other single bowler who has ever existed in mankind. You can see that he bowls nearly 50% short balls in most places. The only locations he doesn't is the UAE, probably because the ball just won't bounce there, and also England and the West Indies, who both use the Dukes balls. That could be that Dukes balls don't react as well when you bang them into the pitch, because they're slightly different than the Kookaburra, or it could be that it's just better to pitch up the Dukes balls, or both. And you can see in England he bowls an incredibly full length, and that is because he wants the ball to swing there. But that's not been Wagner's specialty over the years, so he had to improve that skill. Well, in 1 over, he managed to do that so well that he almost won the game for New Zealand, taking Stokes to one that swung and a lack of patience, and then moving 2 straight balls back into the pads of Foakes and Overton. Sadly for New Zealand, the Overton one wasn't out, although later on they did actually get him out and didn't review. The point is though that Wagner hasn't always been in control of his swing. But as he gets older and he struggles to bowl the 12 over spells of nothing but bounces, he's adapting to keep himself relevant. And that's really what all 3 of these guys have been absolutely brilliant at. Most left arm fast bowlers aren't as skillful as Trent Boult, and yet he just keeps adding more and more tricks. If you had told me a decade ago that Southey's medium fast outswing would still be relevant in 2012, I would have punched you in the throat. And Wagner became the most extreme bowler we have ever seen in cricket. And to keep himself in the game, he went back to a skill that left-arm seamers have been using for over 100 years. That New Zealand now have Jamieson, and it took them 3 tests in this series to actually go back to this original attack, suggests that we are coming to the end of these 3 bowlers. And yet here they all are, still finding ways to get better.